partying next to him, so I'm pretty sure it's like 8:45 at night. Friday night. We've been here all morning and all day. What?
Saturday night.
Oh my God. I lost a day somewhere in there. Saturday night, we've been going for 2 days. And I am here with Robert Slovak. We talked about him in the last video for water, so if you want to hear why you're listening to him, go back to that video. Bottom line is, he's an expert when it comes to ocean water. He's a North American rep for Quinton and Quint Essentials. Quinton is the physician-only version, more expensive. Quint Essentials is the one with the tablet you can pull off, so it's easier and it's less expensive. There's hypertonic and there's isotonic. The only difference is hypertonic is direct ocean water, 3 times more concentrated than isotonic, which is the desired level for many, many, many things. So he will go into all of that. We did a great little interview that he's going to go. We're going to go into his presentation right now, Robert Slovak. Oh, wait, I screwed up. Yeah, that'll happen. Yeah. Sorry. Oh,
I'm actually invoking, this would be very unofficial, I'm invoking actually a consumer.
Stand as close to your mark. There you go, and just press whatever. There you go.
I'm invoking a consumer presentation for this, just to give you a few highlights, because my main objective is to tell you about seawater, not necessarily about Quinton. Seawater has been a recognized therapeutic nutraceutical since the 7,000 years ago. There's a great history of many cultures and everything, North American Indians, Ayurveda using seawater. But the person who really did the most about seawater was René Quinton. And you have to understand, it's not a product, it's actually a medical modality. It's an entire science of medicine just wrapped up in the capability of seawater. And my objective tonight is to tell you why seawater has the functions that it does. Just a solution of minerals and trace elements. It's definitely far more, and it probably has one of the most illustrious proofs of its clinical use of anything that I know. There are volumes, there are libraries of René Quinton. Probably less than 5% have ever been translated into English. We've done some of our own significant translation, but his original treatise, L'eau de mer milieu organique, has never been translated into English, and it's underway. The company that continues his work, Laboratoires Quinton, is his original company that he started in 1897, continued on through its entire history of presence in Europe. It never really made it out of Europe because, very much like the French, it was a boutique pharmaceutical company. It was like a Dom Perignon winery that just said, look, we make this much and we go on vacation, you know what I mean? And they could basically make enough for just really Central Europe, no more. And when I discovered this product in Brazil, I was doing water technology experiments in the eastern rainforest for the Brazilian government. The story is I became very ill, eating roadkill and all the things you do out in the middle of the wild, but I thought I was experiencing a real man's life until I got sick. And I go, where's the doctor? There's no doctor, there's no clinic. And this young man who was the carpenter on our project, he handed me exactly this. And he just said to me, imagine, in the middle of nowhere, where most of the guys rode horses, he just said, this is our doctor. And I was already well trained in health science and so on, and I'm just going, what the heck is this? And he said, it's seawater from the sea. And I go, are you serious? What am I supposed to do with this? He said, just take 1 per hour. So anyway, I did, and at midnight, which was 6 hours later, I had a remarkable relief of every symptom. I could hardly believe it. And I ran 1 kilometer down to the bar where I knew the only place that was open and all the men would be. And I just said, man, you get me more of this. So that's kind of how I got to know this product. For the following 2 years, I ended up meeting the importer, who was a Argentinian biologist. He had discovered and had a revelation that this is one of the great medicines of history. And I spent an evening with him thinking when I went to his house, I said, give me 30 minutes, explain what this stuff is, and I want to buy more. And I left his house at 6:30 the next morning. I was like, so how could I not know about this science? I didn't even ever hear of Rene Canton. So he amazed me, and I spent the next 2 years in Brazil watching the Brazilian clinicians and everybody, I mean the sports people, the clinicians, and cancer treatment centers. I watched how aggressively that they used Quinton and what they achieved, and I was amazed by it and ended up almost reluctantly bringing it. I was already retired for almost 10 years. I didn't want another business, but this was just too much to resist. So I'm going to give you a few little insights see this from the perspective of Rene Canton. I'm going to go through this, but I just want you to know that there has always been historically, you guys already know this, the relationship between blood and seawater. You probably already know that Quinton has been used hundreds of thousands of times as in both world wars as the primary blood substitute. Okay, it was the seawater, the company made it, and so it certainly increased its fame. So this connection between blood and seawater has been well established. And there's some famous people who, as in fact, that's Christians. So I'm going to give you an idea of my perspective of how Rene Canton did not know this, but here's how I see and other scientists see this. This is based upon really the latest geological insights at the National Geographic level of the beginning of the universe. So here's the Big Bang, and I'm going to run through this very quickly. Not as quickly as the Big Bang, but pretty quickly. Big Bang, Earth forms in the Earth begins to form in the solar system by the gravitational collection of dust. The Big Bang was about 13 billion years ago. 5 billion years ago, Earth starts to form. The Earth is made up of which the Big Bang created all the elements and their isotopes of the periodic table. That's what the Big Bang was all about. That plus energy made all the matter in the universe. According to the scientific experts, from 5 billion years to about 4.5 billion years, the Earth was bombarded with comets and asteroids of ice. When I studied this, I had no idea that they were mostly made of ice, but they are. So it bombarded for 500 million years, and by the end of 500 million years, you accumulate enough water that it completely covers the Earth with water. And as I said, this is the latest thinking in science. So not a stick of land was showing on the Earth. What happens? The minerals of the crust of that cooling planet dissolves in the seawater, or in the pure water, I should say, in the pure melted ice. A few 100 million years later, add some volcanic vents, some organic but not living molecules involving nitrogen and so on. Let those bubble up from the fissures. You get the first cellular life, single-celled life. Prokaryotes, they're typically referred to, as you guys know, and you start cellular life. What you had now is cellular life beginning in basically what is recognized as an isotonic solution of the periodic table. That's what it was. You have to think of the C as the periodic table, a solution of the periodic table. It was isotonic, and what is unique about it is that each element dissolves to a specific solubility in the ocean. It's very precise. Here's the timeline of life. Earth forms here, bombarded by ice here, completely covered with water by here. 3.8 billion years ago, cellular life begins. Now, of course, there's a lot of theories about life and evolution and anti-Darwinism, but almost no one disagrees with this. All the disagreement you hear is about this. Here's us over here. We are this fine little brown line over here. That's humanity. That's how much time we have influenced the life. But this is now, a 5 billion year lifespan. From here to here, all life existed in the ocean. And I just want to tell you, this is what struck me. Like, you can imagine how the influence on the design, the evolution of life that seawater had. It was total, it was complete. There's nothing more intimate with life, all species, than spending 3 billion years in the ocean. And this is what René Canton recognized. And René Canton, one of the things that's never been translated very well is he was a student of Darwin, but he had his own complete theory that was many times more sophisticated than Darwin. About the molarity, osmolarity of the blood of each species, the natural body temperature. He knew what species was evolved first. So let's go through this. At about this point, land begins to appear from volcanic activity. Further on down, the continents begin to appear. By this time, there's enough land that promotes life to want to seek a life as a terraformer-based life form. So life left the ocean here. About 700. The plants left first, about 150 million years before life did. Like René Canton really said it beautifully. He said the only way cellular life could leave the ocean was to take the ocean with it, and we did. That's why there's a great similarity between blood, or our extracellular fluid, or our physioregulatory fluid, and the ocean. All the famous guys recognized it. This is from Rachel Carson. All of you know Rachel Carson as the first environmentalist, but she's a marine biologist, and she really, we don't have to read this, but she said it so beautifully, in which the circulatory system, first developed the circulatory system in which the fluid was merely the water of the sea. But everybody really got this. So the 70% of us is really not, it's not water, it's really isotonic seawater. All the scientists refer to this system. Bernard was the first to recognize it, Béchamp, Cannon, Reykjavik, and of course the greatest guy who realized the role of the sea in your extracellular matrix was Bissinger. He wrote a lot about the ocean and how critical the sea was to the evolutionary process. He referred to it as many things: ground regulation, basal regulation. Walter Cannon, the internal environment is then the primordial, remember this is the primordial ocean, physiological basis of the organism, its liquid matrix. All these guys got it. Stanley Schultz, I don't know if you guys recognize. Did you ever know or meet Stanley Schultz? Stanley Schultz is probably the preeminent physiologist. He wrote the forwards of almost every medical text that's ever been written in America. But he said there's good evidence that our predecessors migrated from the seas. During that migration, which lasted 200 million years, they locked within themselves a fluid similar in composition to that of the sea, from which they emerged. Perhaps the greatest lasting contribution was the notion that all physiological processes are designed to maintain the internal environment, the milieu interior, that bathes our cells, tissues, and organs. And that's why I was so kind of captivated by Chris's comment on the extracellular matrix and the extracellular fluid, because it's definitely where the show is being run from. And it's so still mysterious, even among physicians and so on, that we don't connect with it well. We're really into cellular, Virchow's cellular physiology, but we're not into the matrix that much. We don't realize that all these pillars and pathways have far more complex chemistry, ion exchange, and so on than anything that happens in the cell except probably transcription. The internal matrix is composed of all these proteoglycans, sugars, collagens, and so on that are very hollow, almost like honeycombs. And they're structures, and they allow fluids to pass through. You can understand this on your own, and this is what comprises this matrix plus the fluid that runs through it. Here's the human cell in the ocean, in the internal ocean. So here's the bilayer membrane, but it's all floating. The cells are held by all these collagen structures and proteoglycans and polysaccharide structures that fix the cell in one place, or else you just, at 2/3 water, you just fall like a bag of water. But this is how it stays fixed in place. And what happens on the outside really is what Rene Canton understood, and he understood that it's the orchestra leader that runs runs the orchestra. The orchestra and the instruments are the cell, but the leader is the extracellular matrix. In 1904, he performed as good as somebody in 1904 could to demonstrate that the blood was equivalent to seawater by transfusing, extracting seawater, diluting it to isotonic strength, because the modern ocean is hypertonic, not isotonic. It changed at some geological point in history. But he transfused, and many doctors I present this to don't believe it at first, but he ultimately started by transfusing portions, percentages of the plasma, then a little bit of whole blood. But in the end, he simply transfused all of the whole blood of the animal and replaced it with his isotonic plasma de Canton. And he did this to the medical elite of Paris in a very special event that's recorded.
Is it the weaker one or the more common?
The weaker one, the isotonic. So he did this to 4 canines. He did it to hundreds before, but he made the demonstration. He did it to 4 canines, and of course they went through hemolytic shock. It wasn't a cakewalk for the dogs. Don't get me wrong, but they survived. They thrived in the end.
Try to stay on your mark. Please.
Well, that's nice. That's nice to
Your
deal with.
marks.
So here's the bottom line. I mean, blood plasma with the basic electrolytes, extracellular fluid, ketone isotonic, or any seawater. This is seawater. You don't need, if you lived in Fiji and you told me you had a fisherman who would go out every 2 days and get you fresh seawater, I'd never send you another box of ketone, okay? I mean, you're going to get by with it. It's going to be a great benefit. Maybe not as fastidiously processed as ketone, but it's going to do a lot for you. Claude Bernard, the terrain is everything. This is all reflecting upon his insight that the extracellular matrix really runs the show. Back to that. This is one thing that really going to drive the rest of this. The early terrestrial food chain was grown in water that had grown in soil that had soaked in the ocean for 3 billion years. Okay? It was soaked in the ocean for 3 billion years. Seawater was its fertilizer. Every plant offered the periodic table, so animals were used to eating the periodic table. That was their food source.
You think that food was more nutritious?
I think it was a little bit. In fact, it was this nutritious, and this is just a very simple illustration. This is what we work on now, and this is only one aspect. This is the kind of the physiological aspect, but not the energetic aspect of what seawater can be. Just to show you that we don't have the elements anymore in our diet, and it's sadly lacking. We lack the tomato with the periodic table. Also, there's a whole science on the interconnectedness of all the elements of the periodic table. This is a partial mineral wheel, it's often called. You may have seen it. There's a couple books that use this as the main point of the book. There's a relationship. You guys know this. Most of you know this eminently, this interconnectedness between the elements of the periodic table. We make now totally mineral deficient food. You all know this better than I do. But here's a way to express it. I tell people that you're operating on a deck that's missing cards. Here's the periodic table that most people are living on. You were designed in the complete periodic table. Now you're in this compromise. This is what is feeding your life. You're missing a lot of ingredients. So by using seawater, you can put in your body, restore in the extracellular matrix what it was designed to have. It's very simple. Do you get some of this effect with even sea salt, sea vegetables? Absolutely, much better than nothing. But nothing goes, as you will see, nothing will impact the quality of the extracellular matrix like ketone prepared seawater. And I'm not trying to make this an ad, because all seawater has some benefit. Seawater is a very complex solution. It's living, it's like a soup, literally like a soup. So it contains all these other kinds of ingredients. Some are very complex, like the natural antibiotics and natural antifungals. This is just that you guys all know that everything depends upon minerals. So here is what makes this seawater unique and to help our people choose the right seawater. First of all, Quinton is the only seawater in the world that is harvested from a plankton bloom. It's about 100 kilometers from the coast of France and Spain. It maintains a raw and fresh status. It is never heated. There is only one unheated seawater in the world that is Quinton, except one that is therapeutic. It is organic, it is only microfiltered, it is protected in glass, and it is free of contaminants. And I hope to prove that to you. All other seawater things that still have some benefit, but not the therapeutic, and not the therapeutic benefit and capability. All of these are either concentrated, solar evaporated, etc. Still good, but don't have the fine therapeutic capability of Quinton. Here is a seawater that our friends in the autism community use. They sell this by liters. It is also unheated, but it is not processed in any way. In other words, it is literally like taking soup and leaving it out on the counter. Seawater is so biodegradable that you have to protect it from this because it rots just like soup would, like fresh vegetable soup. Just like if you take coconut water out of the coconut, it's not going to last long. Once you remove it from its source, you compromise it greatly. And what René Quinton figured out is, how do we not compromise it but remove it from the source? So 0.9 is really balances. It's identical to the fluid composition of the extracellular matrix in your blood. 3.3, the basic, the concentrated one, which is this one we call hypertonic. This one is exactly as it's extracted from the plankton bloom. It is used for, each one is used for a different physiological purpose. It's often in the most general way. It says, tell me in 5 minutes. Well, I'll tell you in 1 minute. The 0.9 is the medicine, the 3.3 or the hypertonic is the nutrient. That's how it's viewed. It's a simple way to look at it. Each one has a different effect on the autonomic nervous system. Chris knows that very well. One is used to deal with a sympathetic dominant person, one with a parasympathetic dominant person.
But they have to be careful with how much hypertonic they can take.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So the isotonic is for the parasympathetic.
The sympathetic person, yeah. So I won't even go through this. This is just how it's used, and there's books on this and volumes on this. So this product is taken from a plankton bloom. It happens to be a vortexing plankton bloom, very much like this picture. A plankton bloom is a structure that contains in the top 100 feet exclusively phytoplankton because they receive enough light, and below it are zooplankton, the animal version of plankton. The zooplankton regularly come up and graze upon the phytoplankton. What happens is during this grazing, there is probably the greatest bioreactor in the world. It produces more chemistry than anything else on the planet, and probably 99% hasn't even been figured out. The person who has done most to help figure this out is the person that Gary Gordon mentioned, Craig Venter, the guy who did the Genome Project. He has, when he was done with the Genome Project, he bought 2 ships and he said, my friends, everything that you'll ever need in medicine is located in the ocean. See you later. He has done more patenting of seawater chemistry than anybody, and he's probably one of the most hated men in nutraceutical industry. He's patented all the genes. He found 100,000 new genes just in the first month of their research, and they're just traveling every day of every year through the oceans, discovering all these little things in the plankton-rich ocean. There's so much chemistry in there. Here's the kind of organisms that are working 24 hours a day. I mean, you can imagine they assimilate the elements, and they produce an infinite amount of biochemistry. Here's what kind of happens in the simpler rate form. The elements of the periodic table, they're integrated into other organic molecules that are free-floating. These are assimilated by phytoplankton. The phytoplankton are then eaten or assimilated by the zooplankton. And the sum of this is what makes Quinton marine plasma the therapeutic product that it is. This is the product. This is in the factory in Alicante, Spain. It's a very, very modern pharmaceutical company approved to produce in the European Union injectable products, very sophisticated, solar-powered, a beautiful company. This is the boat that they go out with. They collect 4,000 liters at a time, which is enough to make about 400,000 ampules. This is how they collect it. It's very simple. They collect it into these pharmaceutical carboys that have special liners in them, etc., etc. As soon as these get back to the land, it is immediately put into a refrigerated truck at 4 degrees centigrade. This is the key. This is like preserving the soup. This is like keeping it from deteriorating, because seawater just begins to deteriorate instantly, and it starts making hydroxyl radicals. That's what happens when you heat seawater. Now, to show you, this is one of the, we can never show this because it's actually part of a court case. We can never show you or the public this, but this is what goes on with the collection of seawater. There's 3 companies in the world that make seawater products that are used in medicine and health. The other 2, one is Keentone, Laboratories Keentone, the other 2 companies only make heated seawater. It's very easy to make heated seawater because you're completely denaturing it. It's like making Campbell's soup, okay? It's that simple. You heat it, you correct all problems. But this is one of the problems is, this is the other company. I cannot tell you who it is, but it's the 2nd largest company. This is where they are collecting seawater. The company actually sent at our request an investigative team out who took these pictures and many other pictures. But they just go to, this is in the north on the coast of France, in a boat harbor, okay? And they just pull a truck right out, dump. They don't even attempt to go out. They just dump it over the side. This is about 15 feet from shore, and they just suck the seawater out. And here you can see these things in French, you know. This is like, don't even eat the seafood, okay? So this is what happens, but when you heat it, you correct all ills in a way. Of course, you denatured it from any real therapeutic value. You would still have mineral value, but this is what goes on in the world of making seawater. So it's never heated. I think that's the biggest thing. It's only refrigerated, microfiltered. When it gets to the facility, it is immediately put into from the refrigerated truck right into another refrigerated part of the large facility. I don't know why that came up. That shouldn't have. Okay, this is a little bit of the history. I'll just go through it. These are just things we show from, again, not from America, because we can't show things from America. But this is from a Malay boy that after 20 days, something he lived with his whole life. This is the kind of customer that René Quinton had. In René Quinton's time, after 1904, when he proved this, René Quinton really didn't have much interest in pursuing. He proved that blood is from seawater. Okay, great. And then he became very interested in the aeronautical industry. He funded actually Santa Dumont and the Wright brothers. There's books even written on his love for aeronautics. He founded the first aeronautic society. He was a true prodigy. But in 1906, Europe started to break out in the pandemics, and multiple pandemics and epidemics of Europe. Famous 50,000 people ultimately died per month. There was tuberculosis, cholera, typhoid, syphilis, gastroenteritis, and massive levels of birth defects. These are the kind of patients that he saw. But he never thought of his product as a therapeutic product. He just wanted to prove that it was an evolutionary product. And so Jean Jericho from the hospital in Lyon said, listen, we're going to lose this battle. This is going to decimate Europe. We have to do something, and we'd like to see if your plasma de Canton, as he called it, would have some therapeutic value. We know that you've transfused dogs with it. Let's transfuse patients. So they did transfuse patients with it, and the first 4 patients of Jean Jericho, as the story goes and the writings go, survived and lived a successful life. But he said, what can we do? So they proposed to Europe that they set up marine dispensaries all throughout Europe, and they established 69 marine dispensaries. One was in Cairo, Egypt, one was in Algeria, and the rest were in Central Europe. We have a list of where they all were, and people did nothing at these marine dispensaries but inject, orally take, IV, and when I say inject, I mean only subcutaneous inject. This is what was instrumental to overcoming the pandemics of Europe, and almost no one knew this history. This went on until 1922, in which they brought this under control. It's a remarkable story, and this is another 500-page book of the clinical studies taken from those 69 marine dispensaries. It has sections that are brilliant, and some of the sections have never even been translated to this day. These are some more Southeast Asian testimonials. I won't go through it. You guys can figure it out. You don't want to heat seawater, just like you don't want to heat soup if you want the maximum benefit from it. It's that simple. But making something that's unheated and injectable is almost impossible. I said to them, there's no way. I'm a pharmaceutical engineer with water treatment. It can't be done, and I was proven wrong. It is a remarkable thing to achieve, and that's why everybody heats it, because nobody can reproduce this. So once it passes, it takes 1 month for this carboy to pass quality assurance. This is how seawater needs to be done. They do everything, from species of organisms to all the chemicals in it, radionuclides, pesticides, you name it, they do it, and it's tested. It takes 1 month to do it. Once they do it, it's approved for releasing into the ampule. They have their own in-house laboratory, microbial laboratory, and chemistry laboratory. They do these tests that have to be done for the EU, for a pharmaceutical company, and it involves every kind of contaminant, and that's how we learned how low in contaminants water is from this plankton bloom. Here are some interesting things you'll find out. Mercury exposure. Mercury exposure from 3.3 concentrated ketone. Here's what 4-ounce tuna fish is, just to show you the orders of magnitude difference. Radioactivity. 1 quintessential has 0.12 becquerels of radioactivity. Everything that exists on the planet gives off radioactivity. You have to accept it. A cup of coffee has 12. A banana has 15. Brazil nuts 33. And 50 kilograms countertop, you're exposed to 50,000 becquerels of radioactivity. So it's just a non-issue when people ask, well, how much radioactivity? We recently got the tests of people asked us for cesium, iodine, cesium, and strontium. We got all those done, almost undetectable, but they aren't in this presentation. You can see the levels that are in quintessential for these heavy metal exposures. This is what is possible in ketone. It's actually below the detection level, but this is what the USP allowed in the raw materials for any nutraceutical product. So you can see it's tens of thousands of times less. So once it's approved, it's hooked up to the system. Once it's hooked up to the system, all the water has to flow only through glass piping. It's one of the things that was specified that in the production facility by Rene Canton, that he used only glass piping also. So the whole facility is plumbed in glass piping. It goes to the various areas. The ampules only themselves are heat sterilized, and then they go into this robotic filler. Here is the robotic filler. It's in a class 1000 clean room. Everyone has to be shielded from the product so they don't contaminate it in any way. Here's the ends being sealed shut. Here is the facility where they fill the special cans. They also make cans of other, they make cans of nasal hygiene products and skin products. Seawater is fantastic for that. We tell our customers to use these things. I use it as an aftershave lotion. This is a product that is for nasal hygiene. And I thought of this when you were describing how we accumulate this dust. And you know, in the world of ketone, they say this is something that you should be using constantly throughout the day to clean your mucosal terrain.
Put the isotonic in there?
Isotonic, or sometimes half isotonic and half hypertonic. If you had like rhinitis or sinusitis, a more serious nasal sinus condition, you can go with hypertonic, okay? A little bit about Rene Canton. Here is his original treatise, Milieu Organique. This is Jean Géricault. who formed the 69 marine dispensaries with him. It was used as a blood serum substitute. It still is. I have in my car, if anybody's interested, I actually have it still made in a 250 milliliter IV bottle. I've done many myself, okay? I sneak them into the country whenever I can. We have a number of doctors who have discovered so many things about using ketone at these levels that they've actually started offshore clinics in everything from Dominican Republic to Cuba, all over the place. And we arranged to ship them the IV bottles there. Ketone is also used in another way. It's used in a nebulization, in a way for nebulization. There's a company called the Pros Clinic in Barcelona. It's worth visiting. Roy has been there with me. And I just want you to know, I didn't see Roy there before. Roy is one of the few people. He's seen everything. He's been everywhere I have been. And he is one of the few people who truly has embraced and understands the history and the capability of the marine therapeutic method, as René Canton called it. It's truly a science and a medicine in itself. So they treat virtually from pneumonia to cystic fibrosis, they treat every disease that's a respiratory disease only with ketone. He told us occasionally he uses a homeopathic, but mostly it's ketone that comes out of these professional nebulizers at body temperature. And we were just amazed, okay? They also, I don't have it here, but they are doing epigenetic things where they take a child with an epigenetic defect and they are exposed his whole body to this stream for 4 hours a day, and they are affecting changes in his epigenetic status. So anyway, this is almost at the end for the capability of seawater. Its probably greatest crowning glory in its history was in its ability to have women, and this, no one embraced this piece of information like Roy, but and he studied it far more than I had. But the greatest glory of René Canton was allowing women to be fertile, who, because of these diseases, had become infertile. So fertility, conception, pregnancy, postnatal, and lifetime. This is it. I would say if there's anything gift you want to give somebody who's either going to conceive or at any point in their pregnancy, it doesn't, I think Roy would agree, if it's in the 8th month, take it. Am I right?
Yeah.
I mean, just...
What I've seen is couples will call me and say, I read your book, I think I've done everything wrong. I didn't do any of it. And we're 8 months pregnant or 7 months pregnant. What do? And
take it.
I say, take this, and they have a normal baby.
Nothing has given us more joy than the effect we've had with people having babies. Nothing. I mean, in the whole business, it's just been like, people are like, oh my God, I can't believe it. And they're always saying, what's amazing is the difference between my ketone baby, and ketone baby is a term that actually had become famous in Canton's time. And there's books written and papers written that we have, should anybody be interested, describing all the experiments they did with women who had, 10 and 12 miscarriages in a row, and then the next time, boom, perfect baby. So this happens to be Roy's book. It's a fantastic book that's getting a lot of attention worldwide. And these are some of our happy customers all around the world. These are children who don't even mind breaking glass ampules. One of the great things that this should be a part of food. Ketone should be given back to every child every day and before they go to school, just hygienically in their nose, so they can build the mucosal terrain and down it. The biggest problem is they never miss school. This is it. René Canton is a great thing to say. Just to leave it, we are truly a living marine aquarium. So that's it. And I just wanted to tell you, you get some idea of what's required to make a high quality, non-injurious seawater, and how seawater is a living substance that you have to preserve. You just can't take it and send it all over the country and leave it in the heat and so on and think it's not going to grow potential, even if it's taken from a perfect place. You just can't have people drinking seawater that's been around for weeks or months and so on. So
did you go over our whole list of things you said? You did.
I didn't, but I handed the sheet out to everybody.
Okay, so
That's a
we'll make
discussion.
copies of the sheet and put those on too.
Did this give you a different insight than you've had before? Do you think?
No, I can
Oh, you heard this before.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry for.
So the nasal spray, you can just use the regular stuff and put it in, spray bottle. There's nothing unique about that.
Nothing unique. Nothing unique. This is probably better because it's fresher and so on.
And how long is it when it's in the glass vials? How long is it good on a shelf?
Days, but if
No,
you're
I
gonna,
mean, like the regular product, you just have it on a
oh,
shelf
it's all
for
packed in nitrogen, so it's. I mean, it's.
years or
I wouldn't say a year, probably a year.
What's that?
Okay, but we don't import it. We don't even import it.
Which one are you talking
the
about?
regular glass vials that you guys have, like you have
We have to claim a 5-year, but they actually use ketone from the 1930s. Okay, they have a stock of ketone from quality assurance from the I think it's the late 20s, and people it's kind of prized because they think the ocean was better than or something. But it will virtually last indefinitely. But you have to say 5 years, right?
Robert, should I share about the vaccine reaction? What to do?
Please, please. This guy has some.
This is
Sure.
really exciting. True life.
As long as it's not
This
a
is
Garrett Gordon style sharing where it segues
microphone.
a few times.
This-
Love you. Go.
so.
Watch
The
on
first-
record.
I had one
Yeah, there you go.
stand on the star.
Roy Dickman,
So-
the Brighton Baby book. If you're pregnant, thinking about getting pregnant ever in your life, get the book, read the book, and do what it tells you to do.
So I get a call from a friend whose sister has a baby that's 5 days in a coma in a hospital from a vaccine reaction. Very young baby,
So totally healthy
baby.
up until
totally healthy, and then this severe reaction. And very concerned, of course, the mom. So I said, I had never done this before. I thought, I don't know. I mean, the closest thing I could think of is give them Progert sachet. It's like a 1.3 trillion CFUs, human strain. You know about Progert? And then
well, just straight from the sachet.
2 isotonic vials, right? Through, just like a baby bottle or a dropper, right? And the baby opened its eyes and, just looked up to the mom and touched her face, and she called me just crying in tears, and she said, "Oh my God, I can't believe what just happened. I thought my baby was going to die." Really. Wow, and I was shocked too because I didn't know that it would do that. I just guessed. I mean, it's like.
And you had to sneak it into the hospital.
She had to sneak it into the hospital, of course.
In another country, of course.
Wouldn't have allowed it. She had asked them. They said, "No, you can't give him anything." But now several times this has happened where people have called me with a severe vaccine reaction, with the baby's in a coma like this, and I give them that protocol, and I tell people, look, the trifecta for autism is, NSAIDs, antibiotics, and vaccine reaction within a 2 to 3 month period. That equals autism. And the staff in the emergency rooms don't know this. And so even the fact that they don't know that is a big problem, because the parents, meanwhile, if the baby's got a fever, right, you get concerned. People find out, like, oh my God, my baby's has a huge, fever. Maybe a lot of times it's not that high. For me, it's a 103.5.
And they're panicking.
That's fine, yeah.
But you never can lose sight of what it's really doing. It's simple. It's really just restoring the original design and composition of the physioregulatory fluid. And I told doctors, listen, if you don't use it, just use it when your modality is failing or not meeting your expectations. Just think about changing the extracellular fluid composition. People don't talk about the composition of the fluid. Nowhere. I've never seen a book deal with the composition of the fluid. Well, it was one way for 3 billion years. Try it. Experience how your modality changes, because
that extracellular matrix is what is delivering the commands to make your modality work.
Right, yeah. And we're, instead of damaging the immune system by giving antibiotics and damaging the cellular immunity, in a sense, this is informing the immune system. And so it adapts and evolves. And I think that's why we're kind of doing the opposite of what the standard treatment would be. Instead of giving antibiotics, we're giving probiotics. And instead of trying to give the inappropriate foods like GMO-based soy formulas or something like this, we're giving the isotonic to hydrate and for.
And it's also the most energetically programmed. I mean, doctors report this from all around the world. This is old news, but I'll tell you guys. I mean, this one has been programmed by a cyber scan from Germany. That's why it's in this, and we've had incredible experience. I mean, we don't do it, but there's a researcher who's doing it. He's had incredible experience with this. And, a decade ago, almost all the energetic bioenergetic guys in Europe, Jacques Benveniste, Marc Henry, Walter Popp, all these guys have experimented with ketone. All of them recognize it has special energetic signatures and factors to it. In fact, I was just told a few days ago, Roy doesn't even know this, but I was just that they're meeting Luc Montagnier at a conference to discuss with him about taking ketone to the next research level. Wow. And its energetic signatures and so on. So a lot is happening, but it is a wonderfully programmable substance.
Totally safe. There's never going to be a side effect from isotonic.
Right.
And also, like, sometimes you get moms. I used to work with drug-addicted moms, and it's a very sad thing, and it's very hard to do. But, since I always was in a dilemma, like, how do you detox these moms when they're pregnant? What do you do? What can I do? But with the isotonic, it is a safe detoxifier in a gentle detoxifier for the liver. And even I've seen with patients, like even senior citizens, who have they're on 17 drugs. You've seen these patients. The best thing I find is isotonic to start them off. It's a very safe, gentle way of removing the drugs from their system.
A couple of quick things now. But with the hypertonic, we've had some parents that weren't told to make it isotonic, and were using it especially for constipation, well, later discovered it was probably causing the constipation over time. So the clear indication is when you're hyperdosing isotonic.
Yes, also children under 3, only isotonic. And then after 3, you can start giving them hypertonic.
And then just really quickly about the probiotic, have you found anything to grow it in except for milk? What else can you grow it in? Anything?
Well, their rules are different. I mean,
I don't care what their rules are. What have you got?
No, I don't think you can. In fact, it's kind of like a laboratory.
Milk, goat milk, anything?
No, I think it's a laboratory experiment. You have to use ultra-pasteurized, homogenized milk, and you can't allow any contaminants into it.
It's very sensitive. I tried other.
Is there any way to get the protein out?
Because those are the fragile. They're fragile.
Protein.
Well, nature.
Ultra pasteurization mangles that protein, right?
Well,
Sugar cola talks about. No.
No. I'm not disagreeing with it. I'm just saying you're really just doing it for the culture.
Yeah.
Really.
Just think of the milk as a medium. It's just
exactly.
It's like a petri dish.
Growth medium.
He's in less of the milk and more of the sachet. So you're getting no.
You don't need to.
Okay.
No, I mean.
Okay, that's all.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So much, Roy Goodman. Okay, so how much of a break do we want to take before we go to you? 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
Okay,
it's only 9:30.
Insidersville. I hate to do this to you, but our one speaker who can get it done at night is THRiiiVE. 5 minutes and we'll start again.
I'll make your coffee now for you, Peter.
You want coffee? No. This is making the room hot. It just me?
Yeah, just go right
Okay.
Diana,
Yeah.
set up the computer.
Okay, yeah.
No?
Okay, thank you. Well, what a present this was for Christmas. This was my Christmas present.
That's cool.
Beautiful.
I didn't feel like it was working well at first. What about a woman who's sleeping?
He said he wanted to have sex. I didn't.
Oh,
I said no.
So, you said no for Danielle or for yourself? Sure. Why is one stick my hand in your ass?
I just can't.
Teasing. Can we get a little slap happy at this hour? Oh.
Because it's going to take a while for the.
What now?
For this, it's going to take a while to get the computer.
Oh yeah. Oh no. Sorry. Oh my God. You just caught me slapping someone's butt. Ooh.